All right. So now we're going to be adding fractions with unlike denominators and simplifying. This is where students seem to struggle with fractions. I'm going to go ahead and go over the example how to do this, and then I'll show you a common mistake that a lot of students make when doing this. All right, so it's very similar to adding with like denominators, but before we add, we got to actually change the denominators. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write the problem. So 3/4 plus 7/10. All right, then we're going to have to make the fractions equivalent. And we need to get those denominators the same. And we do so by finding the least common multiple and then changing the denominator and changing the numerator. So for this one, I'm just going to show you the steps. The extra example, I'm really going to go into detail on how to find the common denominator. So this one, I'm just showing you what to do. The next one, I'll go into detail into finding the common denominator. All right, so I know 3/4 plus 7/10, right? So I got to get that denominator the same. So 4 and 10, I'm going to look at the bigger number. And then I'm going to just kind of find the multiples of that number and see if it connects with 4 anywhere. So the first multiple of 10 is 10. 1 times 10 is 10. All right? Is 10 a multiple of 4? And the answer is no. Okay? So then I'm going to go to 20. All right? So the next multiple of 10, 10 times 2 is 20. Is 20 a multiple of 4? And the answer is yes. Okay? So that is going to be my common denominator, 20. So plus 20. All right, so if you change the denominator, you have to change the numerator. So 4 times 5 is 20, so I'm going to multiply that 5 times a 3, and I get 15. Okay, and then 10 times 2 is 20, so I'm going to multiply 7 times 2, and I get 14. All right, so then I'm going to add those together, so that equals, so that's the second step, and then the third step is I'm going to solve. So to solve, that equals 15 plus 14 is 29 twentieths. Okay, and I see that I have an improper fraction, so the last step is going to be simplify. And so 29 twentieths would be 20 going to 29 twentieths one whole time. It would be 20 twentieths. And there'd be 9 left over, so 9 twentieths. And that is simplified as furthest as we can go. So the answer is 1 and 9 twentieths. All right. All right. So let's go ahead and do an extra example. If you're happy with it, go ahead and do the on your own. But this one I'm going to go into more detail on how to find the common denominator. All right, so I have 4/7 plus 2/5. Okay, so 4/7 plus 2/5. Right, so the first thing I'm going to need to do is I need to, like I did the last example or the first example, I'm going to look at the bigger number and I'm going to find the multiples of that number. And when I get to a common multiple between the two, then that's going to be, I'm going to use that as my common denominator. So the first multiple of 7, I'm just going to write out the multiples. So 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, 40, 42, 48. I'm going to stop right there, okay? Now, so these are my multiples of 7. Does 5 share any of those multiples common? Does 5 have any common multiples with 7? The answer is yes. And the least common multiple between 5 and 7 is 35. All right, so that's going to be my denominator. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put my denominators down here. 35 plus 35. Okay, now remember, we have to change, if we look to change the denominator, we have to change the numerator. All right, so I'm going to look at, I know that 7, this is going to be kind of hard to do, 7 times 5 gives me 35. Okay, so that's 7. So 7 times 5 is 35. So I'm going to take that 5 and I'm going to multiply it times the 4. Ooh, I meant to do purple. So 4, okay, so 4, so 4 times 5, because I'm using the same number, I'm changing them both by the same value, 4 times 5, and I get 20, okay? So 20 35s. All right, so now I'm going to look over in the other fraction, okay? Look over the other fraction, okay? So I have sorry, someone's knocking on the door. So 5, so I'm going to look at my denominators. 5, so 5 times 7 gives me 35. 5 times 7 is 35, okay? So now I'm going to use that 7 this time and multiply it by my numerator. So 2 times 7, 2 times 7 is 14, okay? So I have, so if I add, now I have my common denominators. Now go ahead and add the fractions. So I have 20, so step 3, I got 20 35s plus 14 30, sorry guys. So I have 20 plus 14 35ths equals 34 35ths, and that is my answer simplified. All right, I can't simplify it anymore. All right, that's the fraction in simplest form. All right, so sorry for the disruption. I had someone knocking on the door, and then it just kind of threw me off. So if you would like the extra practice, go ahead and do so. Click here for the video. Click here for some practice problems. All right, go ahead and work on the pause the video when you're ready. Start the on your own section. Once you're finished with doing the problems, go ahead and resume the video. All right, so pause in 3, 2, 1. All right, welcome back. All right, so number 1, I have 8 16s, 8 3 8s plus 1 16, so that would be the common denominator would be 16 because 8. Where's my pen? All right. So 16ths would be the common denominator. So 16th plus 16th, that 1 16th, I didn't multiply anything times that 16th, that 1 stays the same. So it'd be 6 16ths plus 1 16th. So that's 7 16ths. And that is my answer in simplest form. All right. All right, number 2, 4/5 plus 9/15. So my equivalent fraction would be have a denominator of 15ths. And then so 12/15 plus that 9/15 stays the same, and that would be 21/15. All right, but I get an improper fraction here, so let me go ahead and get that rid of that. So I have 1, and so 15. Then I have 6/15 left over. 6/15. And I'm not quite done. I can keep on going because 6 and 15 share a common factor. So I'm going to go ahead and simplify that even more. So I have 1, and the common factor is 3. I'm divided both by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And then 5, 15 divided by 3 is 5. And so my answer in its simplest form is 1 2/5. All right, number 3, 1/4 plus 2/3. My common denominator is going to be 12. So I have 12 plus, so 4 times 3 is 12, so 3 times 1 is 3, 3 12s. 4 times 3 is 12, so I multiply 2 times 4 and I get 8, so that equals 3 plus 8 12s, which equals 11 12s, and that is my answer in simplest form. All right, sorry for the disruption. Go ahead and do the same thing with subtracting fractions with unlike denominators.